The village of Drellick lay in the shadow of the Black Hollow forest, a place so drenched in old legends and blood-curdling tales that even the bravest dared not venture near after dusk. Fog clung to the edges of the woods like a veil of the dead, thick and suffocating, hiding unspeakable things. It was in this village that Alma lived, a girl of 17 winters with pale skin like cold milk and eyes that mirrored storm clouds. People whispered about her behind closed doors. They said she had come from the forest, delivered one snowy night, soaked in blood that wasn't her own. She was taken in by an old widow named Magda, who raised her in silence and suspicion. Alma had always known she was different. Her dreams were not her own. Every night, she wandered the woods in her mind, bare feet sinking into black mud, branches clutching her hair, eyes glowing in the dark. And always, the howl. A low, mournful, bone-shaking howl. On the eve of the blood moon, when the sky turned an unnatural red and wolves grew restless, that howl came not just in her dreams, but through her window. Alma sat upright in bed, her skin prickling with invisible teeth. The air was wrong. Thick. Heavy. Tasting of copper and rot. It howled again, not like any animal of this world. It was deep, ragged, full of hunger and grief. She peered through the window. The fog was so thick it looked alive, shifting like breath. And just beyond it, two yellow eyes, wide and unblinking, stared back at her. She didn't scream. She couldn't. Something ancient within her recognized it. Alma. Magda's cracked voice came from the hall, raspy and panicked. Stay away from the window. Shut the drapes and light the salt candles. Alma stood in a trance, drawn to those eyes like a moth to flame. Her hand reached for the glass. Now. Magda shrieked. Snapping out of her trance, Alma yanked the curtains closed. She turned to see Magda in her nightgown, hair wild and eyes bloodshot with fear. You saw it, the old woman whispered, more statement than question. Alma nodded. Magda's hands trembled as she lit the tall white candles with rock salt pressed into their wax. The wolf of hollow blood, she muttered. It's begun again. Again? Alma asked, her voice barely a whisper. Magda didn't answer. Instead, she locked the door, drew chalk symbols on the floor, and scattered dried herbs that smelled like mold and death. Alma watched in silence, unease sinking deeper. Later that night, Alma sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest. The candles flickered, casting jagged shadows on the walls that looked like claw marks. The house creaked in unnatural rhythms, as though something walked on the roof, pacing. She pressed her fingers into her ears, but the sound still came, scratching, distant snarling, soft sobbing. At some point, her eyes closed. She dreamed again, but it wasn't a dream. She stood in the middle of Black Hollow, the trees contorted into shapes that resembled corpses mid-scream. The moon above bled crimson. Fog writhed at her feet. A growl, slow and deep, rolled through the trees. The shadows shifted. Then, she saw him. A monstrous wolf, nearly 10 feet tall on all fours, with mangled fur, bones sticking out at odd angles, and a face not wholly animal. The mouth stretched too wide, filled with blackened fangs. But the eyes were human. Alma, it spoke, its voice gravel and nightmare. She tried to run, but the ground opened beneath her. She fell through roots and bones and screams. And woke, gasping, drenched in cold sweat, to silence. The candles had melted to nubs. Magda was nowhere to be found. The door was wide open. The air outside was colder than death. She stepped into the hallway, heart pounding like war drums. The entire house smelled like wet fur and iron. Magda, she called. No answer. She walked slowly, every floorboard beneath her feet groaning like it might break. The front door was ajar. Beyond it, the fog waited. She stepped outside. The village was silent, too silent. No night birds, no dogs barking. No wind. Just that thick, sick fog rolling through the streets like spilled poison. Then she saw them. Footprints. Deep, clawed, inhuman, and soaked in blood. They led from her house toward the forest. Alma followed. With each step, memories flickered in her mind, faces she'd never met, screams that weren't hers, fangs tearing flesh in slow, agonizing bites. A cave. A cradle. Red eyes in the dark. The forest greeted her like an old friend. The trees whispered her name. And somewhere deep within, that howl came again, closer this time, impossibly close. She reached the tree lean. At the edge of the forest, in the place where light dies, Magda stood motionless. Or what was left of her. Her chest was torn open. Her arms were gone. Her head hung by a thread of skin. Her eyes blinked at Alma. "I tried," she gurgled. From the shadows behind her, the wolf stepped forward, dripping and massive. Alma didn't scream. The thing tilted its head. And smiled. Alma's breath caught in her throat as the monstrous wolf towered over Magda's mutilated body. The beast's fur was matted with fresh blood, and its claws gleamed like wet daggers in the pale red moonlight. Its eyes, yellow, wide, and filled with knowing, locked onto hers. There was no rage, no wild savagery. Only recognition. Like it had been waiting for her. Alma's legs trembled, but she couldn't move. A deep voice stirred in her skull, not spoken aloud but pressed into her mind like a red-hot brand. "You are mine." The forest groaned around her. The trees leaned in, creaking like old bones. The ground felt alive, pulsing softly beneath her bare feet. The wolf took a slow step forward, paws pressing into the blood-soaked soil. Alma didn't run. She didn't know why. Something deeper than fear rooted her in place. Something older than memory. The wolf raised a claw, and with sickening grace, dragged it down its own chest, tearing fur and skin. From the wound, black blood oozed like tar. It stepped closer. She finally turned to flee, but the fog closed in instantly, thickening into walls. No matter which way she turned, there was only more fog. More trees. More whispers. And behind her, the wet thud of heavy paws. She tripped. The world spun. When she opened her eyes, she was back in her bed, drenched in sweat. But it wasn't morning. The room was cold. Too cold. Her blankets were torn. The salt candles were shattered on the floor. On the wall, above her headboard, claw marks, 4 deep gouges in the wood, and a symbol drawn in blood. It looked like a spiral crossed with a wolf's fang. The mark of the beast. She gasped and stumbled out of bed. Her arms were covered in scratches. Her hands were blackened with dirt. She checked her feet, mud between her toes. It hadn't been a dream. Magda was gone. Outside, the village bell tolled. It was still hours before dawn. Alma rushed down the stairs, heart hammering, only to find half the village gathered in front of her home. Faces twisted with dread. Eyes wide. Whispers rising like smoke. An old man named Father Tevrin stepped forward, his face pale and drawn. "You saw it," he said grimly. "I don't understand," Alma whispered. "What's happening?" He pointed at the claw mark etched on her door, the same spiral fang symbol from her room. "She's been claimed," a woman muttered. Another nodded. "Marked by the hollow wolf." "No," Alma said, backing away. "This is a mistake. I didn't do anything." Father Tevrin sighed. "The curse returns every blood moon. The wolf comes for the one tied to it. The one born from the hollow. Magda tried to keep it from you, but it was only a matter of time." "What do you mean born from the hollow?" Alma cried. I was born here. No, Tevrin said darkly. You were found here. On the hollow's edge. Covered in gore, wrapped in cloth bearing that mark. She never told you. Alma stared at the crowd. Their eyes accused her. Feared her. Like she was already lost. You must leave the village before nightfall, Tevrin said, or others will die. The villagers began to turn away, whispering prayers, avoiding her gaze. Alma ran. Into the woods. Into the place her nightmares lived. Branches tore at her skin. The deeper she went, the louder the forest grew, creaking, moaning, speaking in tongues too ancient for men. The trees themselves seemed to recoil from her. Then, she saw it, the cave. Hidden behind a thicket of thorns, mouth wide and dark, the entrance called to her. She crawled through. Inside, the air was ice. The walls were slick with moss and something that smelled like rusted iron. Symbols marked the stone, the same spiral fang sigil, again and again, carved with precision and rage. At the center of the cave, a stone cradle. And inside, scraps of blood-stained cloth. She picked one up. Her hands trembled. It bore the mark. The one on her wall. The one in her dreams. The one that had haunted her since she could first remember. She had been born here. A sudden growl filled the cave. She turned. The wolf stood at the entrance, its head low, teeth bared, but it didn't attack. Instead, it began to change. Bones cracked, flesh twisted. Fur receded, and the creature let out a scream that tore through the cave like a shriek from hell. Before her now was not a wolf, but a man. Naked. Scarred. Half-wolf in shape, with eyes that still glowed yellow. You were taken from me, he rasped. They stole you. Hid you. But I never stopped watching. Who are you? Alma whispered, trembling. The man's voice trembled with grief and fury. I am your father. She staggered back. No, that's not possible. He stepped forward, eyes wide with terrible hope. It's in your blood, Alma. You are one of us. The hollow calls to you. The curse is yours. He reached out a clawed hand. Join me, or be hunted forever. The cave was spinning. Alma's skin crawled with cold sweat as the half-man, half-beast claiming to be her father stood inches away, his clawed hand outstretched, face trembling with longing. His breath reeked of blood and earth. His eyes, glowing yellow with unnatural hunger, pinned her in place like spears. You are my blood, he whispered. You were born beneath this cursed moon. The hollow lives in you. You've always felt it, haven't you? Alma's voice cracked. No. I'm not like you. But her pulse betrayed her. That familiar sensation, the tug in her bones, the pressure behind her eyes, the sick thrill under her skin, was back, stronger than ever. It had haunted her since childhood. The sense that something inside her wasn't human. He stepped closer. I watched you grow. The villagers lied. Fed you salt, holy bread, prayers, thinking they could keep it at bay. But the wolf wakes. And when it does, you'll need me. Alma backed away, stumbling. Her shoulder struck the edge of the stone cradle. You killed Magda, she screamed. You slaughtered her. The man's eyes dimmed. He turned from her, shoulders heaving. She was warned. I told her never to bind you in the old ways. That blood would answer blood. But she carved the mark too early, tried to block the awakening. Alma shook her head violently. No. You're a monster. He turned back, mouth twitching with sorrow. So are you. The moment shattered as he lunged toward her. Alma grabbed a jagged rock and swung wildly, catching his cheek. Black blood sprayed against the cave wall. The creature howled, recoiling. She ran. Out of the cave. Into the twisted woods. Branches tore at her face. Roots reached for her ankles. She didn't look back. When she burst into the village clearing, morning light was breaking. But even the sun felt hollow, its rays weak and distant beneath the blood-red stain of the moon still hovering in the sky. The villagers saw her approach. Eyes wide in horror. "Look!" a woman shrieked. Her eyes. Alma froze. What? A cracked mirror was nailed to the side of the church. She turned toward it. Her reflection wasn't her own. Golden yellow eyes stared back. Her pupils had thinned into slits. Her veins pulsed visibly beneath her pale skin, and something dark writhed behind them like tendrils of smoke. "No," she gasped. The mark was spreading across her chest, the spiral and fang, now etched in her flesh like a brand, glowing faintly through her blouse. "She's changing," someone muttered. "She's turning." "Kill her," another whispered. "Before night falls again." "No." Alma cried, raising her hands. "Please, I can stop it. There's got to be a way." A stone struck her shoulder. She stumbled back. Another grazed her temple. Blood trickled down her cheek. "You brought this upon us," a man screamed. The crowd surged. Suddenly, smoke erupted at their feet. Father Tevrin stood before her, swinging a censer of burning herbs. The villagers stopped, choking on the thick, acrid air. "She's cursed, yes," Tevrin shouted. "But killing her won't save us." He turned to Alma, his voice low. "You must go to the hollow. To the altar beneath the roots. There lies the truth, and maybe your only salvation." "Why are you helping me?" Alma asked. The priest looked tired. Older than his years. "Because I saw this once before. Your mother, she bore the same mark. She died to keep you safe. We owe her that much." Alma felt the ground tilt beneath her. Her heart raced. "I had a mother." He nodded. "She was consumed by the hollow wolf. But she delayed the curse long enough for us to find you, raise you." He handed her a small cloth satchel. Inside was a dagger of obsidian, wrapped in aged leather. "It was hers," he said. "Only this blade can sever the bond." Alma nodded, breath shaking. "I'll go." As she turned toward the forest, Father Tevrin whispered, "You must resist the hunger. The closer you get to the altar, the stronger it becomes. If you give in, we all perish." She ran for hours. The light faded. The trees grew twisted and black. The wind carried voices, wailing, laughing, whispering in a tongue only her bones understood. Her limbs felt heavy. Her fingers ached. Her nails lengthened subtly. Every breath made her chest swell with something deeper than air, like rage. Like power. By dusk, she reached the hollow. A vast crater opened in the forest floor, trees spiraling down like a vortex, their roots braided into something that looked like ribs. At the center, the altar. A stone slab, pulsing faintly, carved with thousands of marks, including the one on her chest. As Alma stepped forward, her legs buckled. A scream erupted from her throat, not hers, not human. She clutched the dagger. Visions slammed into her mind, a woman screaming in labor. A monstrous shape standing above her. Blood pouring over an altar. An infant, herself. Wailing into the night as the wolf howled beside her crib. She fell to her knees. The altar pulsed faster. The dagger in her hand shook violently. From the shadows, the wolf returned. No longer a man. Fully transformed. Fur bristling. Eyes blazing. He stepped into the light of the altar, towering above her, howling with hunger. "It is time," he snarled. Alma screamed, but not in fear. In defiance. Her body arched backward. The mark on her chest flared, searing her flesh. Her mouth opened, but no words came, only a guttural, inhuman snarl. The change had begun. Alma screamed as the curse surged through her like wildfire. Her limbs spasmed, contorting against her will. Bones cracked. Skin writhed. Her fingernails split open to reveal talons growing beneath. The mark on her chest glowed like burning iron, spreading across her torso like roots of black fire. The wolf before her, the creature that had once been her father, snarled in approval. Yes, he growled. Let it consume you. Become what you were born to be. Alma's mind twisted with terror and fury. Her vision blurred with tears as the pain overwhelmed her. She clawed at her skin, her own voice lost beneath a chorus of howls that echoed from deep within the earth, the wolves of the hollow calling their heir home. But beneath it all, something else stirred. A memory. Her mother's face, pale, afraid, but defiant. Holding her infant daughter close. A whispered lullaby, not of peace, but of warning. Don't let it in. Alma clutched the obsidian dagger. Her muscles quivered as her fingers contorted into claws, yet she held on. No, she hissed, the word thick with growl. I'm not yours. The wolf laughed, a deep, guttural sound like thunder through a graveyard. You already are, Alma. This altar binds us. Your blood called me. And now, the hollow answers. He raised his snout, and all around the chasm, dozens of eyes blinked open in the dark, glowing yellow like embers. Wolves. Not natural ones. Twisted, spectral things with matted fur and human-like jaws. They stepped forward as one, silent and hungry. Feed, he commanded them. They surged. Alma rolled backward, slashing with the dagger. One beast leapt, and she caught it mid-air, the blade plunged into its neck. Black blood sprayed her face, and the creature evaporated into ash with a howl. The other wolves circled. Alma backed toward the altar. Her breath came in ragged bursts. She could barely stand, the transformation still writhing beneath her flesh, demanding release. Fight it, she told herself. Resist. Don't give in. But the hunger. She could feel the wolf's blood in the air. Taste it. The scent was intoxicating. It clawed at her mind like a drug, urging her to lose herself, to tear, to feed, to run wild under the moon. The Wolf King stepped closer. Your mother died here, he whispered. Right on this altar. She begged me to save you, thought love could cure the bloodline. He sneered. Love is a lie. Power is real. And you are power incarnate. He lunged. Claws slashed toward her face. Alma ducked, driving the dagger into his shoulder. He roared in pain, raking her side with a swipe that sent her flying into the roots of the altar. She hit the ground hard, coughing blood. The wolves surrounded her. She couldn't fight anymore. Her muscles twitched uncontrollably. Her spine arched again, another wave of the change rippling through her. Her ears lengthened. Her jaw ached. But still she gripped the dagger. As the Wolf King approached, she whispered. You forgot something. He paused. I'm not just your daughter. I'm hers too. The altar pulsed behind her. The light of the blood moon shifted, a beam illuminating a second carving, almost invisible, hidden beneath centuries of grime and moss. Alma reached for it, fingers trembling. It was her mother's sigil, a spiral inside a heart, bound by 3 claw marks. The moment she touched it, the altar erupted with light. A blast of white flame shot outward, flinging the wolves into the trees. The air trembled with an unearthly scream. The Wolf King staggered, shrieking. No. She sealed it. You can't. Alma stood slowly, blood pouring from her side. The mark on her chest was still burning, but now it was changing. Its tendrils began to retreat inward, as though the seal her mother left behind was fighting back. The wolves whined, shrinking into the trees. The Wolf King bared his teeth, breathing hard. You think this is over? The hollow is eternal. You delay the inevitable. Alma lifted the dagger. I'm not running anymore. He roared and charged. Time slowed. Alma's eyes blazed, not golden, but a deep violet, laced with silver veins. The hunger was still inside her, but she bent it to her will. Controlled it. Used it. With a burst of speed, she met the beast mid-leap, and drove the obsidian blade deep into his chest. The impact shook the clearing. The Wolf King screamed, not in rage, but agony. His body convulsed, his form cracking and splintering like a shattered mirror. Remember me, he whispered, as his body turned to ash. You are still mine. And he was gone. Alma collapsed to her knees. The hollow fell silent. The eyes in the dark vanished. The altar ceased glowing. But the hunger did not leave. It coiled inside her, like a sleeping serpent. Tamed, but not gone. Her body remained half-twisted, claws, sharp teeth, her eyes no longer human. And the mark, it still pulsed faintly on her chest, sealed but unremoved. Alma stared at the obsidian blade, now cracked down the center. She realized something horrifying. This wasn't over. The hollow had not been destroyed, only forced back. And she was still its vessel. The village was a ghost of its former self. Alma stood at the edge of Hollow Glen, the place she had fled from all her life and yet never truly escaped. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their gnarled limbs twisting into the low-hanging fog. The scent of damp earth and decay clung to the air, thick and suffocating. The villagers had scattered after the Wolf King's death, many never returned. Those who remained eyed her with suspicion and hatred, whispers following her every step like shadows. Alma tightened her cloak, feeling the cold bite through the fabric and into her skin, but it was nothing compared to the cold growing inside her. The hunger. The wolf inside her was restless, simmering just beneath the surface. She wasn't the same girl who had run screaming from the forest. She was something else now. Something dangerous. The village square was silent except for the low hum of wind through broken windows. Ash and burnt wood marked the ruins of old homes where families once lived. Hollow Glen was dying. A frail figure approached her from the shadows. Father Tevrin. His face was pale, eyes sunken, but his voice held its usual calm. You came back, he said softly. I was hoping you would. Alma nodded, scanning the empty streets. The Wolf King is dead. The curse should be broken. The hollow weakened. He shook his head. No. The curse was never just his to wield. The hollow is a sickness, it doesn't die with a single beast. Alma's heart hammered. So what now? I'm still, this. She raised her arm, revealing her clawed fingers. The villagers had tried to burn her once, calling her a demon. She hadn't fought back. Not yet. Tevrin's gaze lingered on her claws, then on her glowing mark beneath her blouse. You must journey deeper, he said. To the heart of the Hollow Glen, to the old ruins beneath the blackwood trees. There lies the source of the curse. Alma swallowed. I don't want to become a monster. He smiled sadly. Monsters are born, not made. But you have a choice, to control what lives inside you, or be consumed by it. A sudden howl shattered the silence. Alma's ears twitched. She wasn't alone. From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in ragged furs, a man, but twisted, limbs bent at impossible angles, eyes wild with feral madness. His mouth was stretched into a permanent snarl, sharp teeth glinting. A wolf, Alma whispered. But this was no ordinary wolf. It limped forward, dragging a gnarled wooden staff crowned with a skull, chanting low and broken words. The villagers called him the Hermit of Blackwood, once a man, now a broken wretch consumed by the hollow's madness. Tevrin's voice was urgent. "Stay behind me, Alma." The hermit's eyes flicked to her mark and widened. "You carry the wolf's blood," he rasped, voice cracking like dry leaves. "The curse will bloom anew. You cannot stop it. You will become the hollow's bride." Alma stepped forward, gripping her dagger. "I am not afraid." The hermit laughed, a sound like bones grinding. "You should be. The wolf inside you hungers for death, for blood. The hollow demands sacrifice." He raised his staff, and a swarm of shadowy wolves erupted from the forest, their eyes glowing like embers, teeth dripping with venom. Alma's heart thundered as she raised the dagger. "Come then." The wolves attacked. She moved with a speed she never knew she had, clawing, slashing, dodging. The hunger lent her strength, but also threatened to consume her. Every strike she made was a battle not just against the beasts, but against herself. A wolf leapt for her throat, and instinctively, she sank her teeth into its neck. It died with a strangled yelp. Alma shook her head, tasting copper in her mouth. "No," she whispered fiercely. "This isn't who I am." The fight raged, but the swarm thinned. At last, the hermit screamed, clutching his staff as it shattered. He collapsed to the ground, writhing in agony, his body twisting and cracking until he was little more than a mass of broken bones and fur. Silence fell. Alma stood, panting, covered in grime and blood. Tevrin approached, eyes wide with awe. "You survived." Alma wiped the blood from her face. "I have to go to the ruins. To find the source. End this." The priest nodded gravely. "The hollow's heart is a place no living soul returns from. You will face what your mother feared, and what your father tried to destroy." A chill ran down Alma's spine. "Then I have no choice." As night crept over Hollow Glen, she turned toward the twisted blackwood trees. The ruins waited. And so did the darkness. The ruins breathed beneath the blackwood trees like a slumbering beast, ancient and waiting. Alma stepped cautiously through the tangled underbrush, the moonlight barely piercing the dense canopy above. Each breath she drew felt thick with age-old rot, and the silence pressed in on her like a suffocating shroud. The village was behind her now, a distant nightmare fading under the weight of something far worse. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but the hunger inside her stirred, sharpening her senses, guiding her toward the source. She found the entrance, a gaping maw carved into the earth, draped in roots and stone. Vines twisted like serpents across the worn steps that descended into darkness. The air was cold, metallic, and smelled of death. Alma gripped the dagger tighter, the obsidian blade glowing faintly, pulsing in sync with the mark burning beneath her skin. The altar's light from before had been a warning, a beacon. Now she was going deeper into the curse's lair. With each step down, the hunger gnawed harder. It whispered to her in low growls and breathless whispers, promising power, release, freedom. Feed. Become. Belong. The walls closed in, lined with ancient carvings, twisted wolves with hollow eyes, human figures half swallowed by shadow. The stories told in stone were grim and desperate, sacrifices, blood rites, curses cast in anger and fear. A sudden sound echoed, a soft scraping, like claws against stone. Alma froze. Eyes flicked open in the darkness around her, not glowing, but real. Dozens of pairs stared from the shadows, reflecting her faint light. They were human. Gaunt, pale, their faces stretched thin with hunger and madness. Their eyes flickered with something animalistic, part man, part beast, trapped between worlds. They spoke in broken whispers, voices like wine through dead leaves. She has come. The blood is alive. The wolf's heir walks the hollow. Alma backed away, her pulse pounding. One stepped forward. A woman, her skin torn and stitched crudely, her eyes wild but pleading. "Help us," she whispered. "The curse, it devours us. We are trapped. You are the key." Alma's heart clenched. "What happened to you?" The woman's lips trembled. "The hollow claimed us. We were hunters once, but now we are its prey. You can end it." Behind them, a deep growl rolled through the tunnels. The hunger flared violently in Alma's chest, claws scraping to break free. She clenched her fists. "I'm going to finish this." They led her deeper, to a cavern vast and shadowed. The ground was cracked, slick with dried blood and ancient runes glowing faintly. In the center stood a massive stone altar, cracked and worn, but still radiating a terrible power. The mark on Alma's chest throbbed fiercely as if in resonance. A shape shifted from the darkness. A massive wolf, larger than any beast she'd ever seen, with eyes like burning coals and fur black as the void. Its maw dripped with saliva. That sizzled where it touched stone. This was the heart of the hollow. The wolf's voice echoed in her mind, cold and commanding. "You carry my blood, Alma. The curse is eternal. Join me and rule the hollow, or be consumed and forgotten." The hunger roared inside her, a tempest breaking loose. Her claws extended, her teeth sharpened. But Alma's voice was steady. "I am not yours." The wolf lunged. Time fractured, the cavern twisted into a nightmare of claws and teeth, fire and shadow. Alma fought with every ounce of strength, wielding the obsidian dagger like a beacon in the darkness. Her mother's lullaby echoed faintly in her mind, a fragile thread of hope. "Don't let it in." Alma screamed, tearing free from the wolf's jaws and plunging the dagger deep into its chest. The beast howled, an unearthly sound that shook the cavern walls. Its form shimmered, warping between wolf and shadow and something else, something terrifying and ancient. "You cannot win," it hissed. "The hollow is endless. You are only the beginning." Alma pressed harder, feeling the curse's power burning beneath her fingers. The dagger cracked, splintering like glass, but the wolf dissolved into smoke. The cavern fell silent. Alma collapsed, chest heaving, blood dripping from fresh wounds. The mark on her skin faded, the hunger ebbing like a retreating tide. She had won. But the darkness whispered one last warning. The hollow never forgets. And it never truly dies. Alma's eyes burned with fierce resolve. She would carry this burden, but she would never let the wolf claim her. The dawn was a pale, uncertain thing, bleeding gray light over Hollow Glen, but to Alma, it was a new beginning, or so she hoped. The battle in the ruins had left her hollow and ragged, the weight of the wolf's curse pressing down on her like a living shroud. The hunger was still there, a low, simmering ember, but the ancient wolf's hold had been broken, at least for now. She stepped out of the blackwood trees into the clearing where the village once stood, now only broken stones and ash. No birds sang. No children played. Hollow Glen was a wound bleeding into the earth. Alma's footsteps echoed in the emptiness, each step a reminder of the lives lost and the horrors endured. She could almost hear the whispers of the vanished villagers, caught between worlds, victims of the curse's endless hunger. Her hand brushed the faded mark beneath her blouse. The wolf's blood still ran in her veins, but she was no longer its prisoner. "Alma." The voice was soft but sharp. Father Tevrin emerged from the shadows, his face pale but hopeful. "You survived," he said, eyes filled with a mix of relief and sorrow. "I did," she replied. "But the hollow still lives. I can feel it." He nodded gravely. "The curse isn't just a beast or a shadow. It's a legacy. Passed down like poison from one soul to another. But you are the first to fight it and win." Alma's breath caught. "What happens now?" Tevrin's gaze drifted to the sky where the first birds dared to sing. Now, you rebuild. You protect what remains. But most of all, you must remember, the wolf's legacy isn't just darkness. It's a choice. To become a monster, or to rise above. Alma looked out at the ruins, her heart heavy but fierce. I won't let it consume me. I'll make sure no one else suffers like this. The wind whispered through the broken trees, carrying the scent of earth and new beginnings. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled behind her. Alma spun, heart racing, dagger in hand. From the shadows emerged a small wolf pup, its eyes bright and curious, a spark of light amid the darkness. She knelt, extending her hand slowly. The pup hesitated, then nuzzled her palm. A small, bitter smile tugged at Alma's lips. Maybe, she whispered, there's hope after all. The curse was broken, or at least changed. Alma understood now, the wolf's legacy was not just a curse to fear, but a fire to wield. She rose, the dawn's light painting her face with resolve. The hollow glen was silent no more. The end.